Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do beer stuff here. Two of our favorite beer stuff things to do: mystery beers and homebrew. You have to do them both in the same package. Beer courtesy of my boy Garrett. He sent off a box of mystery beers, two to be exact. That just happen to be homebrew. So this is in a sweet Odell bottle here, but it's not Odell brewing. It's a little bit homebrew. We're gonna crack into it. We're gonna guess, see what we think. If we like it or not, go from there. And then I have open here, or on my phone actually, some notes from Garrett on this beer, so that way we'll actually know what we're drinking. So yeah, first things first. That haze could be a hazy IPA, could be a wheat beer, could be saison. Chances are we're dealing with a big old hazy, though, to be perfectly honest with you. Label art, can't really mention that all that much, even though I do dig on Odell's art. But that beer, as you can see, it's got that big, rich haziness to it. But not to the point where it looks like it's overtly, like, turbid or some kind of crazy, like, over-the-top, super hazy, murky kind of hazy IPA. Just has that nice, golden, rich, straw-colored hue. Nice pinky finger of head on it. Carbonation looks quite nice. So, yeah, looks the part. Looks like a hazy. Let's get a nose. Yeah. Yeah. Straight New England out of the gate. Not really getting any kind of precursors to any kind of bittering here. It really is coming off as this just nice kind of just sweet, soft, kind of juicy haziness to it. Yeah. Like citra hops, obviously, pretty much all beers contain those now, but it has this bursting amount of like probably a lot of your heavy hitters, new school, but not super dranky dank stuff. You know, you're maybe Galaxy, maybe a little bit Nelson, something like that. Nothing too crazy, nothing like Mutueka, nothing oniony or any crazy anything like that. It really comes off as a big, juicy kind of tropical fruit slash big citrus orange kind of hazy IPA. With really not much as far as any negativity to it. There's really no oxidation. It comes off as something, honestly, I'm kind of chomping at the bit to dive into, and we're going to do that. So from the nose, I'm thinking like a 6 and change % hazy IPA. Let's dive in. Cheers, y'all. Okay, there is a decent bittering to this. And it's undersweetened to where I thought it would be. Really nice mouthfeel to it. It's actually really pretty aggressively bittering in a slightly ranky-dank kind of way. That tropical fruit slash citrus thing that was on the nose that was there in gobs and gobs is definitely there in the taste, but it really does kind of not take a back seat, but it's not nearly as prevalent when you're dealt with this amount of bitterness. There is what I think is a soft amount of oxidation, nothing too crazy. You can see it's a beautiful color. It's got a nice carbonation that's quite vibrant. But there is a soft little kind of like, I don't know. It could be a yeast thing too that I'm confusing with oxidation, because it's almost like a dryness that I'm associating with like dry papery cardboardy thing, but it could just be like a little bit different yeast than like a Conan or London 3 or something like that that's being used. Maybe like Quebec yeast or something like that gives it a little bit more kind of characteristic, a la like a little bit of saison kind of vibes to it. So I could be confusing it with that, because there is this little tiny pinch of tartness. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to say, I'm thinking this might be some Quebec yeast-based kind of hazy. Only because I am getting this soft little subtly kind of tartness that I'm starting to associate now with not a saison yeast, but something like that. It's a Norwegian strainy kind of Quebec-y kind of yeastiness. I think it's higher than that 6 I was talking about. There is a little bit of sharpness on the back end, so I think we're actually eking up there a little bit. Closer to like 7.5%, maybe 8% range. So I think it's Garrett's. Kind of a single pushing in a double. So what I would call double IPA. Let's go 7.8%. Hazy, gobs and gobs of Galaxy and Citra with a let's call it Quebec Yeast Hazy IPA. Extra dry hopped, copious amounts of dry hop. That's where that bittering's coming from. I think if I drank this actually hyper fresh, it would come off a bit more green. The fact that it actually sat in my fridge for a week and a half or so might have did it a little bit of favor. But the carbonation is really nice. For this style of beer, being a homebrew, the lack of any kind of discernible negative oxidation is quite impressive. This is tasty. It's a little bit too sharp. If I'm going to sit here and get really hypercritical, it's a little bit too sharp on a couple pieces that kind of derail me from the softness of what I think this beer should be. The carbonation seems a little bit big, that kind of carbonic thing. I think there's just a little bit extra amount of carbonation in it to where it has this little bit of carbonic sharpness to it. Nothing overtly negative here. This is kind of just, nitpicking at this point. And there is a soft metallic thing to it. I'm assuming that might be, let's mess around with a little bit of water chemistry and see if we can get something going kind of thing. Almost like a subtle salinity to it. When you combine that little bit of extra carbonation and you have that little bit of kind of, let's mess with the water, let's go a little bit of heavy mineral to try to get something kind of that, what you need to make something that really soft and kind of luscious kind of IPA, working that water chemistry the way you need to get to something like this. Maybe we went a little bit too far in one direction. Those would probably be my biggest picking nits. Jesus Christ, this is hard. And yeah, I dig it. I think it's a tasty beer. I think it's a very tasty homebrew. One of the better hazy homebrews I've ever had, to be perfectly honest with you. The amount of bitterness and sharpness to it throws me for a little bit of a loop. Just because I'm used to beers that kind of come off this way with this amount of kind of haziness, for the lack of a more refined term, ends up being a little bit softer than this. I think that's purposeful, so I don't think it's necessarily a negative. I think it's just the way Garrett and the way he tried to manufacture his IPA to be something that is not drop out all bitterness, but it's very much old school New England style IPA with this soft drop out all bitterness kind of vibe with a decent amount of bittering that is just kind of elevated from that sharpness, that little bit of metallic thing going on there in combination, that water chemistry thing going on in combination with that little bit of carbonic thing that just kind of errors it up or edges it up to a little bit of kind of elevated level. So if we're going to do it mystery beer styles, like I said, what did I say? 7.8% double dry hopped IPA. Let's go Galaxy Citra, the big hitters. And they throw that in the loop and go like a little bit of Quebec yeast as opposed to a regular yeast. So let's click on the Odell label bottled beer and see what we're dealing with here. This is Odell beer bottle, Hazy IPA, 6.8. Should have stuck to my guns. I'm a full % off. It's a Pilsner oat, wheat, and golden naked oats. I didn't call out any. Come on back here. I didn't call out any malt on this. There we go. I suck at this. And there we go. Let's see. Okay, so hops. Boil hops. Topaz at 60. Nelson Sauvin at 20. Columbus at 20. So they're, nothing too overly crazy bittering on the boil. Good, you're talking about, no citra at all. It's Nelson Sauvin, Columbus, Strata, Nectaron at various levels of dry hopping. So it looks like there's 4 stages of dry hopping, 2 of which, I'm reading this wrong. There's Nelson and Columbus at Flameout, and then there's dry hopping 3 days before packaging. And it's a Verdant IPA yeast from Lallemand land. So Verdant IPA, I assume that's Verdant from England, so it's probably like a London or ale yeast, I'm assuming. And it says down here, it says, brewed on my normal system that can utilize pressure vessels and the like. The big thing here is that I didn't use any metabisulfite or metabisulfite, or other stabilizers to prevent oxidation. I use conditioning yeast and priming sugar to help scrub reverse stalling flavors. I've been working on Hazy IPA for years between experiments at work and home, and finally feel like I've nailed all the little details that go into making it flavorful as possible while maintaining balance. But I'd like your expert opinion on it as well. I'm not an expert, by the way. These bottles did oxidize a little bit while conditioning, as I noticed a difference in aroma from the last part of this brew that I kegged versus the 6 palate that I bottled for science. But I think the bottled beer still holds up better than a liquor store or a local brewery hazies I regularly buy around me. And again, I'd love to know what you think. And, since you live in the area where some of the best examples are made, and your palate is so good, thank you very much, dude. Hope you enjoy it, and cheers. Yeah, I thought it was really tasty. To be honest with you, I'm not joking. If there was really any kind of like overt negative to it, obviously I would have said something, because that's the whole point here. But I thought it was really nice. Balance-wise, I had this idea that it was just going to be a New England style hazy based off of the nose, and the bittering. Not that it shook me or anything. It was just a little bit bigger than I thought, which I can get down with. But like I said, for me, there is some kind of I call it a metallic salinity to me. There's something in here. It tastes like you're trying to work water, and you went just a little bit heavy in that area. Salinity type kind of, I couldn't tell you what it would be, but it has that to it. Not necessarily like salt water, not even as the level of like a goza's salinity, but almost like if you drink treated water, you know, or actually this is probably the best way to put it. If you drink tap water from the shore, so if you ever go to the shore, by shore, I mean like the Jersey Shore or, you know, any really ocean-leaning town, typically if you drink tap water, you're going to get a subtle salinity to it, because even though there are water processing plants in the area do everything they can to get that water, salt water out of the groundwater, there's still going to be just that kind of osmosis of that having it in there. That's kind of the way it comes off to me. And there's a sharpness to it that I think is an extra. I don't think it's a crazy amount of carbonic acid. Like I tend to get that a lot in some hazy IPAs. I think it's slightly overcarbonated, so it has a little bit of extra carbonic acid in it, to the point where if it was just the carb was just a hair lower, it might not even be something I notice. But those would probably be the biggest nitpicks for me. I mean, when I look at the, you know, base is, it's a Pilsner base, you know what I mean, a little bit, a decent amount of oats for weight and body and wheat, and golden naked oats. Honestly, mouthfeel wise, it's fantastic, especially for its ABV. I wouldn't mess with that at all. I dig the hops in here. This Columbus Strata Nectaron combination, I think works really, really well. The only thing I might go just a hair more on, and this is kind of a blasphemy for me, is like literally just knock a hair more sweetness into it. If you bring back that salinity, if you bring back that little bit of carbonic thing, I think that little touch of sweetness becomes bigger perceptionally, so then nothing needs to be done. But if you're not going to mess with anything else, I'd like it to just be a skosh sweeter to kind of temper that a little bit. And that's, again, really, really nitpicking stuff here. Just me, just kind of just saying how would I want it to be perfect for me, and that's the way I want it. But all in all, if you're talking about just a, you know, relatively low ABV, 6.8%, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people do Hazy IPA, you know, that's kind of low ABV for a lot of people, and for me, that's kind of like perfect level IPA, so I enjoy that. And just enjoy you sending it off in general, brother. You didn't write anything about like where to find you and stuff, so yeah, when this video gets posted, definitely write down there. Tell people where to find you. If you have a homebrew name, tell people what that is, and how to follow you on Instagram and all that stuff. So there you go. A little bit of a homebrew via Garrett, via mystery beer style. Thank you very much, brother. Very, very fun. Hopefully I did it justice, and while you proclaim expert status over here. I'm just some guy that yammers in the camera, and I just happy people find my opinions to be something interesting. So, and I appreciate it. But all that being said, ever feel like sending off homebrew, mystery beer, or otherwise, you're more than welcome. Matt at massivebeers.com. Check me out doing all the social media stuff. Like I said, look down in the comment section. I'm sure Garrett will chime in with where to find him and maybe any other information on the beer he may have. And there you go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this mystery homebrew review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of homebrew yourself. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers, y'all.